So we get to Kuala Lumpur, and we go to Ma Liu Jia, to Malacca, a place called Qingyunting, Green Cloud Pagoda, a famous historic old monastery. And I'm eating at the table outside, and I'm watching Marty, and Marty turns white and faints. Just goes down, just like that. And Shifu looks at him and says, take him in, find a room for him. So I remember going in this ancient, beautiful, everybody's vision of what a temple, a Buddhist monastery should be, carrying him up to the second floor, kind of supporting him like this, putting him down in a bed, and watching him just go, just gone like that. And Shifu finishes with lunch and comes up and grabs his hand and starts to do whatever Shifu does. And he says, you stay beside him and recite the Great Compassion Mantra. If he dies, it's your fault. I'm like, what, Shifu? If he, what? So you better be sincere. So I'm like, I'm only reciting. And here's my Dharma protector, flat on the bed, just gone. And I'm reciting. And the delegation goes out at night, and they go out to do some speaking and come back. Shifu comes back, and how is he? Shifu's concerned. He's obviously concerned. He recites some more, and he says, you keep reciting. And I'm reciting, I'm kind of sleeping and waking up. The next morning, Shifu comes in, same thing, says, okay, you stay here, take care of him, and be sincere. I'm reciting, and then another day goes by. And then, I think it's the third day, and I hear this, and I'm looking, and Marty's back, it's like, oh, I go, Shifu, Marty's back. So Shifu comes in, recites, okay, he says, he didn't die. He said, you can get some rest. So I sleep for a while, and then Marty says, I need to go, help me to the bathroom. So we walk past the door where Master Hua is talking to the other monks. And Shifu says, 你还没有死啊，你赶快死. You haven't died yet. You should die sooner. And he says, bring him in. So I bring Marty in. And that's where you take over the story. Because you're back. So.
Yeah. On that trip, 3 people basically came close to death or died and came back. One was Doug Powers. The other one was Alan Nicholson, go away, and then myself. In different circumstances, but this was a very traumatic journey. So in any event, we're there. The other side of the story is I get sick in Malacca. In between this, they take me to both the Chinese and Western doctors, and they're just clueless. They have no clue on what's wrong. I'm draining, my energy is going down really fast. It's coming out of every orifice, and nothing is working. And there's a fever rising. The pain it's just incredible pain throughout the whole body. I can remember Hung Sure there. I remember lying in the bed, him coming or going, but there was nothing he could do except be by my side because there wasn't any relief. I vaguely remember people coming and going, and I lose complete sense of time. So when he says it's 3 days, I had no idea it was 3 days, 3 minutes, 3 seconds, or anything. So there I am, and what happens is, to answer your question, nobody knows to this day what it was, if you want to say physically, bacterially, or whatnot. But clearly, from my understanding of it, was karmic, and my time was up. It was time. But I remember, now I'll just go into it, I was lying on the bed, and the pain got to the point where it was almost unbearable. And then suddenly there was no pain anymore. And I thought, wow, finally this thing has broke. And I just totally no pain. It was a wonderful feeling. And then I looked and I saw my body on the bed. And I was above my body. I thought, oh, is that why there's no pain? I'm not in that body anymore. And then I was gone. So it's just like, if you ever see these rocket shots where the rocket takes off and they have the camera showing the earth below, and it just, that's what happened. And I just completely then left my body.
You said you started reciting one mantra.
Oh, well, I was getting sick. I would recite the Shurangama mantra, and then I would get down to the heart of the Shurangama, and then I got down to Na. I couldn't even do Mo. So I also saw at that point that my mindfulness was very thin. I couldn't even hold on to anything. And so then I was gone. So at this time, I find out later from Doug and others that the master has started his talk into a 10 minutes or something, and then all of a sudden said, we need to go back. And so they turn around and come back. Hung Sure was going to go with them to that, but Master Hua told him to stay with me. And so right at that time that basically, now I realize I die and I leave the body, Master Hua is turning around to come back. So my experience then is very hard to relate. What happened, all there was complete darkness. I'm using this parenthetically, there was just awareness. There wasn't a body, there wasn't even a will. There wasn't any intentionality. There was just passive awareness. And I want to stress this. Something was aware, but it was like a ship without a rudder. I was just floating in a void, and it was so much floating, there wasn't even a sense of up or down, left or right. There was no locational parameters at all. Just this floating consciousness, awareness in this void. And it was both, at one hand, it was extremely, almost frightening to be so disembodied and so out of control, and on the other hand, it was also liberating in the sense that at that moment I knew that death was not the end. It's funny. There was something, I actually knew that death was not the end, but it certainly wasn't anything I expected or whatnot. So, and then I remember I was floating and I could hear voices and a conversation going on, almost similar to what you'd hear in a judge's chambers, where the attorneys are talking with the judge. And this is going on, and I'm hearing this, and I also know at that time that something about me is being debated or decided, where I'm going to come out in some form here, but the negotiation is taking place. Now the negotiation stopped. What I saw was, as I went into that space, literally every aspect of my life had just flashed by as I was in that floating. I could see it all very, very, very clearly. I don't know what the time element was. And I knew that on the basis of that, I was going to come out someplace else before I heard these voices. And what that vision was, when I say it flashed before me, was a very, very clear scene of everything right and wrong I'd ever done. It was moral content. It wasn't about my accomplishments or my failures or what I had. In fact, there was nothing. It was like so fast that everything disappeared. All material things, the whole material world, everything was just completely gone. It didn't exist. It was like I must have imagined it. All that was there was this floating consciousness and a very, very clear idea. I did this wrong, this was good, this was bad. It was almost childlike in its simplicity, and there was no argument. It was like, well, you don't understand, you see the reason. No, it was like none of that was there. It was just so crystal clear. And then I also saw, and I'm being carried along by that, whatever the composite of that is. That's my check, that's my balance sheet. Moreover, at the heart of it was unexamined raw desire that was compelling me. Lust, sexual desire, whatever you want to call it, lust for, was the driving mechanism of this engine, and then good and bad was it. It was so close, and I couldn't do anything about it. Now, if I wanted to, I couldn't make any change because I had no will to direct anything. It was just watching what I'd done. There was a balance sheet, and then it was going to come out someplace that I didn't know where. Then this negotiation kind of thing was happening, and so there it was, and it was like, wow, yes, death is not the answer, but boy, I know what's driving this machine now, and yet I can't do anything because I'm in this state, and whoa, whoa, whoa. And then I remember I opened my eyes, and Master Hua there was rubbing my hand and reciting something. And I thought, whoa, I'm back. I came back, and I don't know how I got back. I just know that from that I came back. I was in my body. The pain was back, of course. And Hung Sure was there, and Shifu was doing something very kind, very concentrated, intense, and then he looked at me and nodded and he went. So that's my side of what happened. So then when we're passing the door, when he says, "Have you died yet? Hurry up and quickly die," he was referring to what I experienced was what was keeping me in this was my desire. Let your desires die to solve this problem. That's the part. And he said, and he turned to somebody, he says, "How inauspicious is this teacher wishing his disciples to die?" But he said, "I wanted you to die to your desires, which keep you in this cycle of birth and death." And so then I was back.
And I think he also said, it's a good thing that you have a little bit of cultivation, or I wouldn't have been able to bring you back.
Then we found later it came out, he said, "Do you remember?" I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, I had to go and negotiate on your behalf." Oh, so he said, "I had to go and negotiate with the king of the underworld because of your time." And he said, "It cost me dearly to bring you back." This was not a cheap exchange. Hung Sure, Dharma Master Chur was there at the time. Maybe we'll tell you more about this, but Shifu related to her exactly what was going on there and how much of Shifu's merit and virtue was required to ransom this disciple.
When the day that it got really serious, Shifu went out with the others and he left Reverend Hung Sure to take care of Marty, and he left Gotong to be there too. So Gotong was in the room with the two of them, and Gotong could see some things. So he suddenly got cold and he saw the ghost of impermanence come and scared him to death. So he began madly reciting the Great Compassion Mantra, and the ghost subsided. And the other thing I know about that story is that Shifu told us that he used the seal hand from the 42 hands. When you do the seal hand and you know what you're doing, you put a command on the seal. And that's what he did with King Yama. For Marty, he sent King Yama the seal hand, and with the message, "This is my disciple and you can't have him, it's not time yet." And so he and Yama went back and forth about Marty, and in the end, Shifu got to keep him. But he told Marty when it was over, "I had to use all your merit and virtue in order to pull this off. So you've got to start again."
So then when I came back, I realized all of that, and I thought, I'm here on completely borrowed merit and virtue. From here on in.
It makes you sincere.
Yeah. Well, it made me sincere, but it also sort of made me realize that my commitment to doing what I'm doing was now completely single-minded. And I had an incredible responsibility. And I was like, why would he bother to bring me back? I don't know. But I was back and changed everything.
那么我要有一个皈依是不成佛的话，我也在这等着，无论等多久，等1年、2年、3年、5年、100年、200年、1000年、10000年啊，甚至1万个大劫、100万个大劫、1000万个大劫，我都等着。我一定要皈依我的人都成佛了之后，我再成佛。